All right, welcome back. This episode should be slightly longer than that first one was, because at least I'm going to do two colors. So everything that's here is dry, and now I'm doing red on top of the orange that I did a few minutes ago. I suppose that, again, I'm assuming you've seen me do this before. Judging by the response of my students, when I teach this technique a lot, and all I can say is evidently there's more going on the canvas than first meets the eye. Because when my students try to do this technique, invariably when they get down to the end of the painting, they look at me and say, "Oh, I guess it mattered what I did right at the beginning." And I look back and say, yeah, did you think otherwise? So, even though this looks like it's just a complete mess, I've done this sometimes. If you were to compare this right here, what I've done, just that much so far, with the finished painting, most of the time you would discover that there is, in fact, method to my madness, if you will. That the placement of these seemingly random strokes of color aren't as random as they appear. Again, I can't take this here. Let me bring you over here so you can see this picture up close. It's easier to move you than it is to move the picture. So that's the closest picture I have to what this painting is going to look like. So for instance, take this angle right here. Warm from here down, a little bit cooler from there up, and this angle right there. Now, look at my painting. Let me back you out. And you see almost exactly the same angle there and then there. See that? So when students ask me, well, when do you start drawing? My answer is usually with the first stroke. It just doesn't look like drawing, perhaps. But in fact, it is. And also, if I could have pointed out also that the bottom part of this, the patio where the reception was literally red brick. Thus, red. And a twilight sky and warm glow in the middle. So there actually is. Now, I'm not suggesting that I spend hours and hours, not even minutes and minutes. I don't spend long periods of time meditating deeply on the position of these things. Hardly. I paint just the way it looks. Like, I think that line goes approximately here. The thing is, this line, which is pretty firm, is, I consider, malleable. I can easily move that without messing things up, without irritating things. Okay, now, yeah, I'm going to proceed without a break, right straight to some drawing. Just in case you ever wondered, this is my favorite kind of brush in the whole world. Chip brush, very cheap, and this is my favorite kind of brush in the whole world. Not quite so cheap, but still pretty inexpensive. And I'm thinking, for instance, here's a good example. I did that line there initially. Now I'm thinking, no, I think it's lower than that. I think it comes down to about there. But notice I'm not going to make any effort to cover up or obliterate this line. All those little mistakes, if you can even call them that, changes of mind, they simply serve to create a texture in the final painting, the final piece of art. And even the lines I'm putting now, of course, I don't depend on them either. I don't treat them as though they're correct. I treat them as though they are suggestions, because that is exactly what they are. They may or may not stay where I've put them. And usually, I would bet, if I'm a betting man, I would bet no, that they're not going to stay there. And again, you may have heard me say this before, but I think that's one of the big characteristics between an amateur or beginner painter and an experienced painter. A beginner tends to put down lines early or block in their paintings, which terminology I strongly disagree with. Don't block in your paintings, blob in your paintings. But anyway, a beginner tends to put in marks and then believes them, which is always amazing to me. I'm probably a better drawer than most of those beginners, and yet there's no way I believe or trust these marks or think that they're correct. I precisely do not think they're correct. I've put them in as a beginning suggestion, as a starting point. I'm certainly not going to put my weight, so to speak. Certainly not going to put my weight down on them. So again, the context of this reception was a transparent tent, nicely decorated with twinkle lights and drapery curtains. A transparent tent in the driveway, circle driveway of a mountain home. The mountain home was very much in the style of an old English manor. Beautiful home in the mountains of North Carolina. Here again, I did a line up here just a few minutes ago, and I was thinking that was the line of the top of the house, and now I'm completely changing my mind. And moving it down noticeably. Okay, then down here, while I've got purple, while I've got some dark stuff on my brushes, I'm going to go ahead and give suggestions for figures, people. That's a row of people, if I've ever seen it. People sitting around a table. Okay, I'm going to let all of that dry for a minute, then come back and do probably another color glaze before I do some white. Okay, hope that's fun, hope that's instructive. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you like this. Bye-bye.